What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now in today's episode marks the start of a new series, and that is how to build a deck from start to finish. I'm going to show you all the steps along the way of what it takes to build a new deck, and yes, we'll be using the latest technology of building materials, utilizing Trex composite boards. But before we can go ahead and get started on a new deck, the old one has to come down first. Now behind me is my 1989 foreclosed house I bought a few years ago for a stellar price, and have been rebuilding it room by room. And with it came the deck pictured behind me, and my neighbor seems to think it's original to the house, which makes it 34 years old. So today I'm going to show you all the details of this old deck, what it's going to take to disassemble it, and the tools needed. So let's go ahead and get started on disassembly. Alright, before we go ahead and take apart this old deck, let me give you a tour of what's going on here. So I believe this deck is a 16 wide and 16 deep. It's got a staircase on the back side, which as you can see is drastically falling apart. Now in the past, I've actually had to replace this 4x4 post right here, because I can see this pipe right here. This pipe goes under the deck and into the basement basically. So there's a sump pump, and when it rains and whatnot, the sump pump pulls the water and spits it out. Now, when I bought the house, basically there was no pipe right here with this 90 degree. So what would happen is all the water would just spit out right here, go on the ground, and it would just run across this post right here all these years. And when I started digging around this thing, I guess there's probably like that much wood left over. So luckily there was a secondary and a third member over there supporting this deck up. Now as you can see, the pipe is actually drilled through the joist right here on the front, and it's drilled through the bottom plate right there of where all the deck members start from where it's attached to the house. Now I was thinking about putting like a concrete patio right here, but actually I have gas lines running underneath right here. So in order to do a footer and whatnot, it's just not going to work. Just too much headache. Okay, and then working my way to the handrail posts. As you can see, these things are put together with lag bolts. So I'm going to go ahead and take my impact driver with the correct socket and buzz these things off once we get all these pickets off and rails. Now as you can see, all this ivy that the previous owner planted, this thing is a mess. I've been trying to clean this thing up and weed eat, but it just goes out of control. So I'm gonna probably kill all this stuff off, put some plastic barrier down and put some nice rocks before the new deck goes in place. And let me show you the situation on this staircase right here. So I'm not sure if you can see on this camera angle right here, but basically the landing of the stairs, it's tilted downwards. So there's been a lot of settling right there. There's no support, so I don't know if that staircase was an afterthought or whatnot, but anyways, it's got to come down. The new deck will not have a staircase on the front side. I think that's silly. There's a staircase right there leading to the driveway, and that's adequate enough for me. Okay, let's take a closer look at the condition. And as you can see, some of these boards are just rotting away, especially on the staircase right here. A lot of splitting action. And as we get closer to the boards on the deck, this knot right here is starting to pop through. And over here, these deck boards are starting to cup up. I could fix this by putting some screws down and whatnot, but we're gonna go ahead and start from scratch. Now, I've had recommendations of someone trying to convince me to power wash this thing and refinish it, but with that collapse right there of that stair landing, just doesn't make me feel confident. And as you can see right here, they put all these boards at a 45 angle. Now, when the new composite boards come in from Trex, I'm actually orient them in a straight pattern going this way. And might actually put a dark border going around the perimeter of the deck, which will give it a nice accent. Haven't thought about that yet, but it's in my mind. And as I mentioned before, this little landing right here and this oversized staircase, it's gonna go bye-bye. We're not gonna do that. But what I am doing for the new deck is we're staying with 16 wide, because it got that little alcove wall right there. Just go from the same location over to over here on the corner of the house. That's the corner of the house right there. So this is 16 wide, or I think it was like 15'9", whatever it was. And I believe from this dimension right here on the end of the deck, I think that is 16 or 17 foot. We're gonna actually push this deck out to about 20 foot. Anyways, so going from about 17 foot over to about 20 foot probably, maybe even 21. And this right here is a waste of space with these 45 angles. I know it makes it look all fancy and whatnot, but I think I'm just gonna stick with a traditional square deck to maximize the square footage. So 16 wide and 20 foot long, that's the game plan. So anyways, enough about the deck plans, let's talk about the demolition. So my plan for demolition today I'm not sure how far I'm going to get because it's already midday, is I'm going to go ahead, demo this staircase right here, and I'm going to start with the handrails over on this side, and I might get the handrails on this side as well, and on this side. Now, one cool thing about this deck, had a little alcove for a barbecue, so I might actually utilize that in the new design. We'll see. Now, one thing about the boards, I noticed, I think these are actually installed with staples. I don't know if you can see right there, these are not nail heads or screws. All right, so game plan for the day, stairs, landing, handrail for the stairs, and handrail for the main part of the deck as well on the left and right sides. Tomorrow, main floorboards. We'll see how far we get. Okay, let me go ahead and show you guys what tools are gonna be required in order to demo this deck. And for deck demolition day, tools and equipment needed: impact driver with a Phillips head bit, just in case you have any miscellaneous planters hanging off the side right here, 2 Phillips head screws, impact driver with the corresponding socket size, for the removal of the handrail post with these lag bolts, regular hammer, sledgehammer, small pry bar, large pry bar, safety glasses, and safety gloves. Not quite sure if I'll need any saws, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So that right there, folks, is the tools and equipment you'll need to demolish a deck. Now, before you go ahead and start pulling boards up, you gotta think about where you're gonna place those boards, because you wanna handle the material twice. And in my case, I'm gonna start loading up and my utility trailer's been emptied out, just in case nobody wants this thing. So I have advertised this lumber. We'll see if someone wants to grab this stuff, but if not, we gotta go ahead and haul this stuff off to the dump. And the first step of the demolition process on my end is I'm gonna go ahead and start on the staircase. So the stair treads, the stair rails, the stair stringers, these small posts right here, if I can get them out by hand, and I'm gonna go ahead and put in the utility trailer. So let's go ahead and start the demolition process. Okay, in order to remove this handrail section, you got some lag bolts right here. This is 3/4 inch, so you got 2 options. You can take the easy route, which will save your wrist. This is an impact driver. I got the 3/4 inch socket on the end, or you can use a ratchet and socket, which will take you forever. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this on the socket right here. I'm gonna make sure that the gun is in the reverse position, and I'm just gonna squeeze and the machine's gonna do all the work. Okay, I believe there's a bolt on the back side. That's why it's free spinning, so I'm gonna have to reach under the deck with a secondary wrench while I spin this. So there is a bolt and washer that I can feel with my hand. So I'm actually taking that off right now, spinning it freely. And here's the hardware you can't see on the back side. You got a flat washer, you got a lock washer, and your nut. So essentially I'm gonna have to take off all those washers and nuts from the bottom side before I can actually remove the rails. Okay, so let me finish up removing the washers and the nut from the back side, and this little railing section will come right off. All right, say we made some pretty good progress. Now this is about 2 hours worth of work. So I basically started at the corner of the house, and I was actually removing the handrail and the posts and whatnot. This post is staying for the time being because that's going in the ground. But all the other posts that were basically just attached to the side were removed, along with all the railings and tops. So let me go ahead and show you guys what's in the trailer right now so far. All right, and so far, here's the trailer full of debris with all the handrails and whatnot, but I'm not sure if I can get any more stuff in here. We'll find out. I might probably make a dump run maybe tomorrow. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove the stair treads and the risers themselves. And let me show you how to remove those things. Okay, so what you wanna do is you wanna take your pry bar and you wanna wedge between the stringer and the bottom of that tread. So I've got it in place right now, and you can actually push down and use the leverage in order to pop this up. Usually these are in place with nails, so they should pry right up. And the same thing with the risers. Basically just take your pry tool, wedge it in between the stringer and the riser, and just basically push forward, so it's like so. And if you're having trouble getting the end of the pry bar in between the stringer and the tread, you can actually tap it in place using a hammer, and then you can actually push down on the pry bar. So you can basically use leverage in order to pop these boards up and the risers off. Okay, so let's go ahead, remove the treads and the risers from the staircase. Alrighty guys, apologize about the wind, windy day here, but anyways, we're at the last section of the handrail. As you can see, there's 3 posts. Now this is a little dangerous. I actually had to take my impact gun and buzz off these lag bolts, and there's actually a nut and washer on the inside, so I had to hold it in place with a wrench or a ratchet. So anyways, all the nuts are removed from the inside of the deck. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna go up on top of the deck. All right, so what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna take my sledgehammer and I'm gonna tap on the base right here of all these 3 posts, because you still got the pins of these bolts in place right now. That's basically what's holding this thing in position. And then I want this thing to actually fall down onto the ground. So you don't wanna be on the ground here while you're trying to like break this thing away. All right, well, wish me luck right here. Last section of the railing. Hope it doesn't damage my house or break a window, but you know, fingers crossed. Let's go ahead and take this off. Okay, here's where we're at with the deck demolition right now. Obviously, I've got all the railing off the side of the deck, and the staircase and landing has been removed. So here's what's left of the stair stringers. Those are no good. Those things were tearing apart once I was getting the treads off the stairs. And there's a majority of the stairs, treads, and risers right there. And then right there on my 5x8 utility trailer, I got all the handrails and pickets and whatnot. So they're stacked up nicely. Okay, so here's what's going on in the driveway. Obviously, you see this long construction car trailer right here. This is not mine. This is someone else's. So what has happened is I went ahead and advertised this deck on Marketplace for $200. And the guy was very interested. He wants the deck boards and all the handrails and all the other associated parts. So he came over, he took a look at it, so we agreed to $600. So $200 of that is all the deck boards and all the handrails. And another $200 is all the structure and the posts. And another $200 is for me, for my labor, removing all these staples. So I gotta carefully remove all these staples, whether I snap them off or take an angle grinder and just cut them off. But I've gotta use caution in order to disassemble this deck, because this deck is gonna be repurposed now. So that's what's going on. I'm getting $600 to demo the deck and load up all the material onto his trailer. And once I'm done, I'm gonna give him a call, and he's basically gonna hook up to his Dodge Ram and just pull it away and gonna go rebuild it somewhere else. So that makes me feel a lot better, rather than having all this deck material go in the dump. Because I mean, I could reuse some of this stuff for like building planters or whatever, but you know, it's going to a better purpose right now rather than sitting in a pile, I guess, in my backyard. Okay, so right here was a stair landing and a staircase. And then when I got the stair landing demoed yesterday, I got a taste of what I'm in for removing the staples. So on each location of the joist, there's 3 staples holding this board in position. This is tedious getting this thing out. The staples don't want to move. Obviously this deck is about 30 years old. It's original to the house from what neighbors said, but we're gonna use caution demoing this deck so we can repurpose this thing for someone else. So basically what my strategy is in order to protect these boards is I'm gonna take my scrap 2x4 and I'm gonna hold it on the underside somehow. And I'm gonna take my sledgehammer and I'm gonna be striking from the underside, trying to get the boards pulled upright. Now, if I took my pry bar and wedged, it's really gonna dig in to the wood right there on the underside. And the underside is what the guy's gonna install. So he's basically gonna take my deck boards and he's gonna flip them over. Because on the underside, the deck boards are really nice shape. So if you take a pry bar and you start prying, you know, on each of these corners and each of the locations where the joists are at, you're gonna gouge up the wood. So you gotta use caution when you start demoing the underside of the deck right here. And then what the buyer and I agreed to is I went ahead and numbered all these boards. So as you can see here, I got, you know, 16, 17, you know, 19, 22, 24, it keeps going on. But actually I have a total of 43 boards in this deck. So I haven't decided where I'm gonna start with. I might actually start on this side right here and work my way towards the house since this deck is oriented in a 45-degree position. So I'm gonna carefully remove these boards and see how it goes. And once I get to about this location, I'll give you guys a demonstration of how I'm removing these boards. So let me go ahead and get started. Alrighty guys, you can see here, got quite a few boards removed, so I'm on a roll. And let me show you exactly what's going on here. So the boards stopped at number 42, and I'm at number 34 right now. So this section right here took me about 3 hours to remove, I kid you not. I mean, these boards are really in the joists because there's 3 staples on each location of the joists. And these things are really hard to remove. I mean, if I was in a hurry, basically I'd take a circular saw and just make multiple cuts going towards the house along the joist and basically just demo the crap out of this thing. But we're saving this for someone else, so we're taking our time. It is what it is, learning experience, but let me show you how I'm removing these boards, and it is tough. Okay, so method number 1, I got a scrap 2x4 right here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go on the underside, I'm gonna put that 2x4 under that board right there. And I'm gonna hold it in position right below the fascia right there. And since I got the camera in my hand, just pretend that 2x4 is still there, and we're gonna be hitting on the bottom of that 2x4, just knocking upwards. I mean, this is a little tough right here, handling this mini sledgehammer, but it's giving me some arm exercise at the same time. Basically, the theory here is to knock the board upwards away from the staples. And if you're lucky, the staples will stay in place. And if you're not, basically the staples will basically rip right through the wood. That's how soft this wood can be. And the second method is getting the pry bar. But the pry bar gives you some damage a little bit, just depends on how much you push down on that pry bar. Because that pry bar has got some sharp points once it pushes down. So if you want to start with the sledgehammer and the piece of wood, get this thing raised up just a little bit, and then you can slide your pry bar in there and just pry it up, you know, carefully. And then method number 3 is going to help you guys a lot, especially if you guys do auto mechanic work like I do. Let me show you what tools you'll use. Okay, this right here is my 3-ton floor jack. So I'm using a hydraulic jack in order to push up on the underside of the boards. And what I'm doing is I got a scrap 4x4 piece right there. So basically I'm lining up the saddle as close as I can to the bottom side of where I need to push up onto the wood. So let me give you a quick demonstration. Okay, so right underneath this board, I'm gonna put the 4x4 as close as I can on the underside. Okay, so I got the 4x4 in position right now, and it's situated on the saddle of the floor jack. Let me see if I can give you a demonstration while I'm pumping this floor jack and what this thing does. So I'm basically gonna be pushing down and up on this floor jack because I got it locked in position to fill fluid in that reservoir. All right guys, so I'm gonna start jacking up and I'm gonna see if the wood actually raises and give you a demonstration of what this hydraulic force is doing. So here we go, let's get started. I'm pushing up. It is raising a little bit. I hear some cracking. It's raising just a little bit, as you can see. All right, let's hold it in position right there. I'm gonna take a close-up view, show you what's going on. Okay, so this is what's going on right here. I got all the force going on the underside of this board, and it has separated about a 1/4 inch right now. And what it's actually doing is pushing up so much force, and those staples are in that wood so much that it's actually trying to separate this joist from these beams right here. That's how much force those staples are in place right now. So what I recommend doing is actually starting on the edge right there, jacking up on the edge, and just go along one route. And just keep going along the route right there until you reach the end. And basically the board should pop up a lot easier, but you're gonna need to use multiple methods. You know, the floor jack on the 4x4, you know, the pry bar, and the sledgehammer, and that scrap piece of 2x4. So it's just a combination of all those methods in order to carefully remove all these boards. It's a tedious process, but if you want to reuse deck boards, I mean, it is what it is. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and set the camera up, and I'm gonna show you exactly what it takes in order to get one board up. So let's go ahead and get started on removing one deck board here. Okay, so the board marked number 34 is officially removed. Now, according to that video, that took me 11 minutes and 4 seconds to remove this board using the floor jack, the sledgehammer, and the 2x4, and the pry bar. Took my time, it turned out all right, didn't split too well. Now, there was a toenail over right here. Now, what is a toenail? It's basically a nail that goes into the wood, and it's actually a 45-degree angle. So some of these can be hidden, so just be careful you pull out the toenails if your boards have that. So whatever rhyme or reason, this installer, I mean, there was a toenail on this side, you know, the board before that, I mean, it was on that side. There's only one toenail for each board, but like I said, I don't know the rhyme or reason, but anyways, just make sure it's removed before you get the boards removed. So the next step of the process is I told the guy I'm gonna take care of all the staples. So there's no staples on the bottom side right now. Actually, there's a little stub right there. I'll have to grind that down. And over here, I need to grind that down, and right here in the corner. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my angle grinder on the joist and just cut all these staples off. You know, like right here, and right here, and right here. And safety first. Always wear safety glasses when you're grinding. So this is my angle grinder right here, and I got a cutoff wheel installed in position. And always use your guards. Never take those things off. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and grind down all these staples from the board and the joists, and I'll go ahead and take the board and load up on the guy's trailer right there. Alrighty guys, we're officially out of time for today's episode, but we made some great strides in getting the old deck boards and the handrails officially removed. Now stay tuned for this deck rebuild series, as we'll be demoing the structure next time around and planning for the new deck layout. Now if you found this video helpful or entertaining, please give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching and have a fantastic day.